So let's get started. I promised you just before the break that we would talk about a little bit about how Spring is able to magically pass these parameters into these methods, these handler methods. Right. We were able to pass a servlet request and servlet response. Spring knew how to provide those. We were able to pass a model. Spring knew how to provide that. We were able to pass parameters that were annotated with this request param annotation. So Spring knew how to provide that. And what I wanted to just show you real quick is a full list of the things that Spring can provide if you want them. Right? These are all basically on demand, right? If your method doesn't need anything, you just don't ask for anything, right? Like our contact list handler. Well, it needed a model, sorry, but our add contact request, that one didn't need a model. Didn't need a model, didn't need any request parameters, didn't need anything. So we just didn't pass anything. All right, so what can we pass? Servlet request, HTTP session. So this is another thing from the Servlet API if you really, really, really want it. Do you guys know what Servlet like sessions are? Have you guys seen this before?
It's like maintain a state. Basically.
Yeah, maintaining state, right? This is the Java servlet like crappy server side stateful model. Oftentimes, if you're like shopping on some website, you'll see in the URL it'll be like JSession ID equals something. That JSession ID references an ID for an HTTP session, right? So you can attach state to that, and it's crappy. You shouldn't use those, but if you want to, Spring can expose that to you.
So if you want to implement like a shopping cart, right, where you need to keep track of what's in the cart and all of that, what's the contemporary way of doing that?
Oh well, you're signed up for my REST course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So talk about it in a few weeks.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting question. All right. Let's see. Web request and native web request. So these are sort of wrappers. This web request object is sort of a wrapper, a Spring specific wrapper around the HTTP servlet request API. So you can get similar things from it. You can get like the request parameters and so on. Usually we have a better way of doing all that stuff. So I haven't seen a need for this. But again, that's something you can get.
You probably never get a handle to HTTP server request directly, right? If at all, if you need to access it, you would go through web request.
Yeah, typically. I don't
know why, but I guess.
Yeah. Most of the, this stuff is available to you if you need, because some people are very used to programming against these particular APIs, and so maybe they have some code. Maybe they have some library that takes a servlet request or takes whatever. So in that case you would need to interoperate. But in new code, yeah, I don't see too much need for this. Things that are useful though are things like the locale. Right, I can say that my handler method, my request, my Java method that handles the request can take a locale. And what does that let me do? What would be an example of something I would do there?
Internationalization.
Yeah, for IATN, yeah. So I could choose different views based on locale. Yeah, so that might be handy. Okay, input stream and output stream, or reader and writer, right? These are the same things that we could have gotten from the servlet request and servlet response, right? Give us direct access to the requests, to the body of the request and the body of the response. So, for example, if we don't want to do model view controller, if we just want to do controller, and sort of the less, perhaps the less disciplined way of doing this stuff. If we just want to say, all right, the controller is just going to write directly to the HTTP response, we can still do that. Again, we can get these from the HTTP request or response, but in order to avoid polluting our code with those dependencies, we can get them directly from Spring. Okay. Security principal, if we have a currently authenticated user, right? So these are standard Java things so far. But now let's get into Spring-specific stuff. Like,
so with respect to that security authentication, does Spring provide any single sign-on type?
Yeah, Spring provides. Actually, in our old version of this course, there was some amount of time dedicated to Spring security. But yes, Spring does provide another module that you can plug in that does
Single sign-on?
Single sign-on? I don't know. I don't know about that. I basically just know about like the SSL stuff.
But the authentication, like users log in and stuff like that?
Yeah. So you can reserve, for example, you can reserve an entity in your database to have to do with users, and Spring can manage that. All right, path variables. This is very resty. We'll end up seeing this tomorrow, or maybe depending on how we're feeling, maybe today, right? Path variable. Talk about this for just a second. Let's pop this open. Check out this request mapping. I don't know what this domain model is, this owners stuff, but you can see that there's a little template variable in here, right? Owners/owner ID. So we can imagine the same thing, contacts/contact ID, right? And so the way that you would get access to the content of that variable is with this path variable annotation, right? That would be a string. All right, request param. So we've seen that. Those are the query parameter things, the things after question mark. Right. So we've seen those. Request header. What do you think about that one? What would we possibly use that one for?
JSON, best calls, JSON, XML.
Yeah, right. So for example, if we wanted to programmatically switch on the accept header, or accept header, yeah, or
Tags and stuff like
yeah,
that?
e-tag, exactly. I was going to say like if modified since, or if not modified since, or whatever, right? So we would get that from request header. Request body, again, this is a better, sort of more idiomatic way of getting the request body, right? We can do it with a Java I/O reader or a Java I/O input stream, but better to just get the request body, right? That's easy. Handling multi-part form data, right? This is all more HTTP stuff.
How does it do that? Multi-part? Like if you're uploading a large file, right?
Yeah, so I mean, like, actually, what I'm going to do is this document is actually a really useful document. So I'll give you the link to this. Put it in the put it in our README. Oh, by the way, since I'm on the topic, if you go to the GitHub project now, our README has some more interesting stuff in it. I've copied our JDBC pain points notes into that README.
I could pull it, or do I have to download it from the web?
Oh, it's just in the README.md. GitHub just knows that it should display it. And the links to all the videos, right? That's all in there as well. So I'll put here before I forget. Let me reference material. Oops. All right, so that's a good one. Okay. All right. Anyway, you guys got the idea, I think. So the point is that for any of these handler methods, you can just have Spring inject any of the things that are listed here. So how do I get access to X, Y, or Z? Well, just look it up here, and highest likelihood is it'll be here. How do you access request parameters? Well, request param. How do you access headers? Request header. Fine. So again, this is much easier to work with than the servlet API, right? This is why we're going through this stuff. Servlet API sucks. Okay, so let's get back to writing some code. The big task that we're going to do before lunch, which well, it's not a big task, but what we're going to do before lunch is refactor our post contact method, our servlet style post contact, into something a bit more Spring style again. Let's take a look at this. Let's see what I can draw on the screen here. Control 3. Yeah, there we go. Actually, let's do this in red. Okay. All right. So let's say we're trying to add a new contact. So the things that we need to get from the request are, oh man, it's gonna be bad news. Street, city, state, zip, name, right? How do you suppose we're going to get those? Yeah, those are all going to be individual request params, right? We're still going to do the same thing. We're going to save, right? Save the new contacts in the repository. But then here, let's do this in view. This redirect. We don't really have a good way of doing redirects yet, right? So far, in our servlet style, we're using response.sendRedirect. So let me show you an example of how this works. Let's show you an example of how this works. We'll do this together. Oops. Post. All right, so this one's going to be post add contact. We know that it's going to be add contact because it's going to have a params equals add, right? So walk me through this. What are the things that you guys know already?
Request params.
Yeah, so we need request params, right? That's what we just talked about. So post add contact doesn't throw any exceptions or anything like that. It's going to take a request param string name. Sorry, this is going to be a little bit tedious. Request param string street. Request param string city. State. Zip. Right? Name, street, city, state, and zip. Okay. Okay, how do we create an address from those? Well, we just do it, right?
Should we use the model there?
Good question. Let's get back to that. So, street, city, state, zip. Name, address. So address, contact, we save the contact, and now we need to redirect, right? So the question was, do we need a model? Well, for our post methods, were we doing MVC?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Well, you're posting and getting it.
We're posting and then redirecting. We're not populating a model in a view, right? So we need a way to do redirect. Here's how we do a redirect, and I'm just going to show you this string because this will be hard to believe. We return, oops, redirect colon, and then oops. What's wrong here? No, there we go. Yeah, all right. So this is what it ends up looking like in Spring style. So let's check this out again, right? We've got all of our request parameters all up front. We just do our logic straight, you know, as if it was just regular Java objects, right? And then our way of redirecting, we don't need the servlet response object. We say that the view that we're going to return is not actually a view, it is a redirect. So it's just say redirect colon and then the URL that we want to redirect to.
I'm sorry, what does it do in the last line?
So remember in our get methods,
Yeah.
we specify the logical name of the view, right? So we're doing something slightly different, but similar though. The way that we specify a redirect is we say that our view, so-called, is going to be a redirect. We just say that in the string here. Spring will parse that. So Spring parses this and says, oh, we're going to issue an HTTP redirect to this URL.
So the post redirect will always end up in the get method, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is that document that we were looking at. This actually talks about it as a standard pattern. I've never heard this term before, but it calls it the post redirect get pattern. This is what we talked about yesterday, right? It's very common to do this because you don't want the request parameters for the post to affect the get, and you also don't want refresh to resubmit, right? All that stuff.
I guess I'm just curious, why wouldn't it use, you know, how it had web request or something? Similarly, does it have some sort of web response?
No. There is a different way to do this also. So if we go back and look at this here, redirect. So you can set some specific attributes, right? This is another one of these things that you can pass in to the method.
Oh, so you pass it into the method and then...
You pass it into the method, but still the method still needs to return this redirect colon prefix view name. This is a little bit weird, right?
Yeah, it's actually weird.
Well.
Like, why would it land this string prefix, right?
Yeah. Again, this is like sort of speaking a different language a little bit. Yeah. But that's how it's done, and that's why we take these classes, so we can find out about this weird stuff. All right. So here, let's take that out. All right. So this was the implementation for post add contact, which I will check in for you. All right. So that's checked in. Now, of course, your assignment is going to be to springify the other two, right? So we had, in post-add contact, we had add, or in post-contact, rather, we had add, edit, and delete, right? So your job now is going to be to split those three things out. So we split one out. You need to do edit and delete now. Let's finish up with this. So so for post contact, post edit contact, right? All right. So for post edit contact, we need a different method name. Don't forget that your params has to be different, otherwise Spring will get confused.
Contact should have that template, right? ID.
I'm sorry?
No, it probably doesn't.
Yeah, no, it doesn't need it, but we do need a request param, an ID request param, right? We do need that. All right. So we look up our contact, we get our address, and then we just say set name, set street, city, state, zip, and save. Yeah. All right, and how do we redirect to the contact view page? Well, same as we did here, right? That's it. I feel like this code is cleaner. That's my professional opinion. for what it's worth. All right, and then how about for the delete one? Yeah, I think ID is all that we need. Yeah. So here, post delete contact params equals delete. Right. We don't throw, right? No throwing. Okay, so we don't need to parse out the long. We just find. Oh, and so this is a little bit different, right? We can do it this way. We can find the contact and then delete it, or we can use a new method in the JPA repository. We can just delete by the ID. So this then becomes just a one-liner. All right, let's try it. Let's try it. Oops, I keep making that mistake. By the way, guys, you'll notice like when we start up our server, it's doing a whole lot of stuff now, right? We start up our server. Jetty tries to figure out some stuff about its environment. Then Spring starts to figure out some stuff about its environment. And Spring realizes that it needs an entity manager, so then Spring starts to Spring loads Hibernate up, right? And then so Hibernate is set up, and that needs to set up our connection pool and our database, right? So this all sort of cascades down from there. Then we've got other stuff in our application context that Spring just sort of puts out some debugging information about. Dispatcher servlet, right? And I think, let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, then we get some info here about our request handler mappings, right? So check this out. You can see all this. A method that that goes to /contact with get and parameter edit should go to this method, right? This contact controller.getEditContact. Right, and we can see, if we ever get kind of lost, if we ever have any trouble figuring out why certain methods are being called or whatever, we can always go back to this debug output and just see a full list of all of the request dispatchers mappings, right? Or the dispatcher servlets mappings, right? So that's all set up for us now. Hopefully my code still works. Let's find out. Dog. Right, that worked. Let's add a new one. Yeah, there they are. Cool. Delete Tesla. Yeah. All right. Everything seems to be working, which is good news. You guys have it working on your setup? All right. Awesome. Congratulations. Yes.
Remember yesterday we had to when we were doing a merge and we had to force it to save to the database.
Mm-hmm.
How's that handled now? That portion.
Yeah. So the JPA repository is like totally opaque to us now, right?
Yeah. But it knows how to do that. When to.
Yeah. Right. So right now we haven't specified any transaction. Right, we haven't said that we're operating inside a transaction. So it knows when we do save, it knows that it needs some transaction. So it just creates one at the smallest scope that it can, and that's what we were doing before, right? We were doing it by hand. We were just creating a transaction just around the save. We'll see probably later this afternoon. We'll see cases where we actually are going to create our own transaction. Right. Yeah, so that's a good question. All right, cool. So here's what we want to do. Basically, now this is the state that I wanted us to be in at this point. Like I wanted us to be in a state where we have a couple of entities. We have a repository, right? We don't actually need an address repository, but it wouldn't be hard to make one. Right, we just do the same interface magic that we did with contact repository. Right? So we have a couple entities, we have a repository, we have a controller, we've got some views, and the code is, like if we look at this code, we can see how to add new things to it, right? That's the point. The situation that I was trying to avoid is basically like the code that we had before, where if we wanted to keep adding to it, we would sort of exponentially blow up the complexity of these servlets, which would suck. So now I think it's fairly straightforward for us to add new functionality to this application. And since it is so straightforward for us to add new functionality to this application, we're going to add a whole lot of new functionality, and that's going to take us basically through the rest of the day. So here, let me go to my outline here. So we're going to have a new class design. Instead of just having contact, we figure a contact is just like the name of a person with an address. We're going to differentiate between a few different kinds, two different kinds of contacts. We're going to have a person contact. So person is going to be a subclass of contact. And we're going to have company also is going to be a kind of contact. So what does a company have? Like take Cisco for example, right?
Name.
Name.
Address.
What's Cisco's address? Cisco has a lot of addresses.
Multiple addresses.
Yeah. So a company is going to have multiple offices, and each office will have its own address. Yeah. So this is going to introduce some additional concepts from JPA for us. Okay. Two. One concept is, since person and company are both kinds of contacts, we need to worry about inheritance and polymorphism in our database, right? The whole thing about object relational mapping is that we've got the object-oriented world over here, we've got our database world over here, and there's this huge impedance mismatch between the two, right? Right. The databases don't have any notion of polymorphism or inheritance, right? There's no, so we have to figure out how we want to represent that. And it turns out that JPA provides a few convenient options for us. So we'll explore all of those options. Okay. So that's thing number one that we're going to look at is inheritance. And then thing number two is, since a company has multiple offices, we'll look at one-to-many relationships. Right? We've seen one-to-one relationships so far. We'll see one-to-many relationships, which is going to be kind of an interesting news story. The other thing that we'll see sort of as an outcome of that is, like, let's say we have an office. What things do we want to know about the office?
Address.
We want to know the address. Sure. What else?
The
List
people
of
who work.
employees who work there.
Oh, listen. That's a good thought. Yeah. No, that's a good thought. I mean, making these sort of more tightly referenced, right? But also, we might want to know what company that office belongs to, right? Yeah. I mean, right. So we can get a list of offices from a company. That's our one-to-many side. But maybe we also want the inverse. We want to know what office or what company office belongs to, right? So another outcome of this relationship is going to be the inverse mapping, figuring out how to navigate the other direction, right? So I think let's just leave it at that. Let's leave it at an intro. It's probably a good time to break for lunch anyway, even though our last break was like kind of recent. That's going to be basically the set of work that we're going to be doing for the rest of the day. So we'll be doing a fair amount of JPA work, and then also, since our controllers are now sort of scalable, like we can add new controllers and add new views in basically just as we need. We'll actually implement all of these as well, right? So person, edit name, address, delete person, right? We've got that stuff already. Basically, the contacts that we have are persons, but we'll also have edit the name of a company, view all the offices of a company, right? Delete companies and all that stuff. And then for a given office, right? We want to know the office name, all that kind of stuff. So that's the work that's going to take us through the end of the day. Okay. Cool. It's 1:45, so let's start back up at about 1:45. Okay. Our outline. You know what? I don't want to share it yet because it sort of changes as we go along.
Okay.
Like day 5, I just have is like we'll see what we get to.
But like that's fine. It's just to like when I'm reviewing the video, it's good to like follow what we did.
Sure.
Day and then just
What if I were really good, what I would do is I would like in my README I would say like which videos correspond to which topics.
okay. I mean I can figure it out.
That'll be all right. Well, all right. Yeah. So
a little bit of text at the outline that just helps.
yeah. I'll put that in there.
Cool.
I'll figure out a good way to do it. All right. So 1:45. Yeah.